The council ordered humans to pay tribute, but their reply shook the galaxy. Part 1. The message came from deep space, wrapped in silver light and cold authority. It arrived not with fanfare, but with silence. A single data pulse that cut through the chatter of Earth's orbital networks like a blade. Within minutes, every major government terminal lit up with the same emblem. The triple spiral of the Galactic Council, an alliance older than human civilization itself. On the surface of Earth, life went on as usual. Children played in parks, farmers checked their crops, and commuters grumbled about traffic. But in the secure underground chambers beneath Geneva, the world's leaders froze. President Daniel Cruz stood at the head of the long table, his knuckles white against the polished wood. Around him sat his closest advisors, Defense Chief Lisa Morgan with her sharp eyes and sharper mind, Ambassador Carl Hicks, whose calm voice had diffused a dozen crises, and Dr. Maya Peterson, the quiet scientist who had first detected alien signals 3 years ago. The Council's demand was simple and brutal. Humanity, having only just launched its first warp-capable ship 5 years earlier, was now classified as a late-emerging species. Under ancient galactic law, such species owed tribute to the Council for the privilege of existing in civilized space. The list was long: 10 million tons of refined titanium, full schematics of human fusion reactors, genetic archives of Earth's biodiversity, and cultural records, including every film, song, and book ever made. Failure to comply within 30 standard days would be seen as an act of rebellion, punishable by blockade, resource seizure, and possible planetary quarantine. "They're treating us like children," Lisa said, her voice low but edged with anger. "Or worse, like livestock." Carl leaned forward, fingers steepled. "They've done this before. The Cathari paid tribute for 2 centuries before they were allowed to join the trade lanes. The Zira still send half their harvest to council depots. And we're supposed to just hand over our history," Maya whispered. "Our music, our stories, our children's drawings. It's not just resources, they want our soul." Daniel didn't speak for a long time. He stared at the hologram hovering above the table, the council envoy, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and eyes like polished obsidian. His name was Kalis Vorn, and he had delivered the message from orbit, his voice smooth and utterly devoid of emotion. "Compliance is not optional," he had said. "It is the price of peace." Outside, the sun dipped below the Alps, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples. Inside, the weight of the decision pressed down like gravity. Some urged caution. "We don't have a real fleet," argued General Elliott, the Joint Chiefs representative. "Our biggest ship is a modified cargo hauler. If they send even one battle cruiser, we're finished." Others disagreed. "If we give in now, we'll never be free," said Senator Ramos, her voice trembling but firm. "They'll keep taking and we'll keep giving until there's nothing left of us but echoes." Daniel thought of his grandfather, who had survived a war on Earth long before aliens were real. He remembered the old man's words. "Dignity isn't given, it's claimed." He looked at his team. "What do we know about the Council?" Carl answered. "They've ruled for over 8,000 years. They see themselves as guardians of order. To them, species like us are either useful or dangerous, nothing in between." "And have any species ever refused tribute?" A pause. Then Maya spoke. "Records are spotty, but yes, the Varel tried 600 years ago. Their homeworld was glassed. Nothing grew there for a century." Silence filled the room again. But then Lisa said something unexpected. "They expect fear. They expect begging. What if we give them neither?" All eyes turned to her. "We don't have weapons to match theirs," she continued, "but we have something they don't understand. We've fought each other for centuries, yes, but we've also built hospitals in war zones, shared food during famines, sent messages of peace into the void just in case someone was listening. We're messy, flawed, and stubborn as hell, and we don't bow." Daniel felt a strange calm settle over him. He thought of the millions watching, waiting, hoping their leaders wouldn't sell their future for temporary safety. "Call a global emergency session," he said. "Every nation, every representative. We vote tonight." By midnight, the United Earth Council convened in a virtual chamber that spanned continents. Voices rose from every time zone, some pleading for peace at any cost, others demanding resistance. But as the hours passed, a pattern emerged. From Tokyo to Nairobi, from Buenos Aires to Oslo, the same sentiment grew: we will not be owned. When the final tally came in, it was unanimous, not a single dissenting vote. Daniel stood before the live feed, his face broadcast to every screen on Earth, and he knew, to the Council ship hovering just beyond the moon. To the Galactic Council, he began, his voice steady. We acknowledge your message. We understand your laws, but humanity does not pay tribute. We offer friendship, knowledge, and cooperation, but not submission. We decline. The words hung in the air like a spark in dry grass. On the Council vessel, Kalis Vorn watched the transmission with mild surprise. His aide shifted nervously. Shall we prepare the enforcement fleet, envoy? Kalis tilted his head as if listening to a distant sound. No, he said slowly. Not yet. Let them enjoy their defiance. It will make their fall more instructive. But back on Earth, in homes and streets and quiet rooms, people felt something they hadn't in a long time. Pride. Not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet certainty that comes from standing together when it matters most. The galaxy had given humanity a choice. Kneel or be crushed. They chose neither. And in that moment, something shifted in the stars. Not with a bang, but with a whisper that would soon become a roar. The Council ordered humans to pay tribute, but their reply shook the galaxy. Part 2 news of Earth's refusal spread faster than any human ship could fly. It leapt from relay station to relay station, carried on encrypted bursts and public broadcasts alike. At first, most species laughed. The Dranks called it the squeak of a cornered rodent. The Velnari diplomats smirked behind their silver masks, already drafting reports on how quickly the humans would beg for mercy once the blockade began. Even neutral traders shook their heads, muttering that humanity had signed its own death warrant. But not everyone laughed. On the mining moon of Cathar, deep in the outer rim, a group of laborers huddled around a cracked screen in a rusted barracks. They watched the recording of President Daniel Cruz's message over and over. One of them, a young miner named Real, turned to his brother with tears in his eyes. They said no, he whispered. Just like that? No begging. No fear. His brother nodded slowly. Maybe we don't have to keep working in the dark forever. Far away in the drifting cities of the Zira nomads, elders gathered beneath bioluminescent canopies. They had sent tribute for 300 years. Grain, water, even their children's songs recorded and shipped off to Council archives. Now they played old human broadcasts, speeches about freedom, songs about rising after falling, stories where the weak outsmarted the strong. An old Zyra woman named Visa touched the screen gently. They remember what we forgot, she said. That dignity is worth more than safety. Meanwhile, on Earth, there was no time for celebration. The 30-day window had closed. The Council had not replied, but everyone knew what that meant. Silence was the calm before the storm. Admiral Nina Rodriguez stood on the command deck of the Aegis, humanity's first true warship, still unfinished but armed and ready. She had spent the last weeks turning hope into hardware. Civilian freighters were retrofitted with point defense lasers. Lunar factories churned out shield emitters based on Maya Peterson's theories. Mars colonies redirected mining drones to scan for incoming threats. Every engineer, pilot, and technician worked double shifts, not because they were ordered to, but because they believed in what they were protecting. Nina wasn't a loud leader. She spoke softly, but her eyes missed nothing. She walked the decks, checking systems, listening to her crew. She knew their names. Jake Ellis, the hotshot pilot with a knack for improvisation. Tina Cho, the comms officer who could decode alien signals in her sleep. And Ben Carter, the grizzled engineer who kept the Aegis running on duct tape and stubbornness. They think we're just a planet of poets and farmers, Nina said during a strategy meeting. Let them keep thinking that. While they're looking for our weapons, we'll be inside their blind spots. On the ground, Lisa Morgan coordinated planetary defenses. Orbital platforms bristled with railguns. Early warning satellites formed a net around the solar system. Even schools and hospitals had emergency protocols now. Shelters, comms backups, food stockpiles. It wasn't fear that drove them, but preparation. Ambassador Carl Hicks, meanwhile, worked a different front. He sent open messages to every non-council world, not asking for help but offering it. If you've ever been told you're too small, too young, or too weak to matter, his broadcast said, know this, you're not alone. He included data packets, human medical tech, clean water filters, solar converters, free for anyone who needed them. Within days, replies trickled in. A Mer trader offered safe passage through their asteroid belt. A lone Cathari pilot sent coordinates to hidden supply caches. It wasn't an alliance yet, but it was a start. Then, The Dranks came. Their fleet emerged from warp just beyond Neptune's orbit. 3 heavy cruisers, 2 destroyers, and a command vessel shaped like a blade. General Torvak, a scarred veteran of 100 pacifications, stood on his bridge, arms crossed. He expected to find a trembling world ready to surrender. Instead, his sensors showed active defenses, patrol ships on alert, and no signs of panic. "Foolish creatures," he growled. "They've built toys and called them shields." He hailed Earth. His voice boomed across every channel. "This is your final warning. Surrender your leaders, open your databases, and prepare your tribute, or we will burn your cities from orbit." Admiral Rodriguez answered from the Aegis. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She simply said, "You are not welcome here. Leave peacefully or face the consequences." Torvak laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through his ship. "Consequences? You have no fleet, no allies. No chance." He ordered his ships forward. What happened next surprised even the humans. As the Dranks crossed the orbit of Uranus, they triggered a hidden minefield. Old comets packed with shaped charges placed by Mars miners weeks earlier. 1 destroyer took heavy damage. Before Torvak could react, human frigates darted from the shadow of Saturn's rings, launching drone swarms that mimicked capital ship signatures. The Drank sensors went haywire. In the chaos, Captain Jake Ellis led a small strike team in modified shuttles. They didn't aim for hulls or weapons. They targeted comms arrays and navigation relays. Within minutes, the Drank's fleet was blind to each other, firing at ghosts. Torvak roared in fury. "Focus fire on their main ship!" But the Aegis vanished into a dense asteroid belt near Jupiter, using terrain like a fighter in a canyon. The Drank's cruisers, too large to follow, fired blindly, wasting energy. After 6 hours of cat and mouse, Torvak had enough. His fleet was damaged, confused, and low on fuel. With a snarl, he ordered retreat. As the Drank ships limped back into warp, silence fell over the solar system. Then slowly, cheers erupted. From mission control in Houston, from the lunar base Alpha, from the bridge of the Aegis. They had done it. They had held their ground. But Nina Rodriguez didn't smile. She knew this was only the beginning. The Dranks were just the Council's enforcers. The real power, the elders, the ancient fleets. The full might of the Alliance had not yet moved. Still, something had changed across the galaxy. Species that had never spoken to each other began sharing messages. The Cathari miners stopped working for a full cycle, the first strike in 2 centuries. The Zira nomads rerouted their caravans toward human space, carrying not tribute but supplies. Even some council-aligned traders hesitated, wondering if the old order was as unshakable as they'd believed. Back on Earth, President Cruz stood on a balcony overlooking the Pacific. The ocean stretched endlessly, calm and deep. He thought of the message they'd sent, not just to the Council, but to every being who had ever been told to kneel. "We decline." 2 words. Simple. Final. And somewhere, in the dark between stars, those words were growing wings. The Council ordered humans to pay tribute, but their reply shook the galaxy. Part 3. The Drank's retreat sent shockwaves through the Council's golden halls. For the first time in centuries, a young species had not only refused tribute but repelled a punitive fleet. The elders convened an emergency session, their long faces tight with disbelief. General Torvak was stripped of his command and confined to quarters. His name erased from honor rolls. In his place, the Council appointed High Admiral Vela, a strategist known for crushing rebellions before they began. She did not rage. She studied. She watched every second of the battle footage, every human transmission, every scrap of data from Sol System, and what she saw unsettled her. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not rely on superior firepower or ancient tactics. They used chaos, speed, and something she could not name, something that looked like hope. Meanwhile, Earth did not celebrate for long. They knew the Council would return, and next time it would not send enforcers. It would send annihilation. Admiral Nina Rodriguez gathered her top officers aboard the Aegis. The mood was tense but focused. "They'll come back with everything," she said. "Bigger ships, smarter weapons, maybe even Elder-class dreadnoughts. We can't outgun them, so we outthink them." Her plan was bold. Instead of waiting in orbit, humanity would take the fight beyond their system. They would strike supply lines, disrupt communications, and most importantly, reach out to those who had begun whispering support. Ambassador Carl Hicks led the diplomatic push. He traveled not in a warship, but in a modified science vessel named the Horizon. His first stop was Varel, An icy world where the Mir people lived in domes beneath frozen seas. The Mir had once been scholars, but the council had turned them into data scribes, forced to translate and archive knowledge for the elite. When Hicks arrived, he brought no demands. He brought medicine for their sick, filters for their water, and open-source designs for geothermal heaters. The Mir elder, a woman named Cora, studied him with tired eyes. "Why help us?" she asked. "Because you helped us," Hicks replied. "Your old star charts showed us safe paths through the Orion Veil. Your language algorithms helped us decode council signals. We don't believe in debt. We believe in return." Cora was silent for a long time. Then she nodded. "The Mir will not fight, but we will hide your ships. We will share what we know, and we will tell others what you've done." Next, Hicks went to Sarnak, a desert moon where the Cathari rebels trained in secret. There, Lisa Morgan met with their leader, a former miner named Jor. She didn't offer weapons. She offered training. "We don't teach you to kill," she said. "We teach you to survive, to strike fast and vanish, like the wind." For weeks, human instructors worked with Cathari fighters, showing them how to sabotage council outposts, how to use sandstorms as cover, how to turn mining drones into scouts. In return, the Cathari gave them maps of hidden tunnels and patrol routes. Back in Sol System, shipyards worked around the clock. The Aegis was joined by 2 new carriers, the Liberty and the Phoenix, built from salvaged hulls and raw ingenuity. Captain Jake Ellis trained new pilots in asteroid fields, teaching them to fly like ghosts. Tina Cho and her team developed a new comms net that bounced signals off comets and moons, making it nearly impossible to jam. Then, the council returned. This time, it was not a fleet. It was an armada. Over 200 ships emerged from warp near Pluto's orbit. Dreadnoughts with hulls older than human history, cruisers bristling with plasma cannons, and support vessels that could drain a planet's power grid in hours. High Admiral Vela commanded from the Spear of Order, a ship said to have quelled 1,000 uprisings. She did not hail Earth. She simply advanced. Nina Rodriguez knew they couldn't win a straight fight, so she didn't give the council one. As the armada crossed into the outer system, human forces struck from the shadows. Mining drones reprogrammed as suicide bombers slammed into supply tenders. Hidden platforms near Uranus fired railgun slugs that punched through shield harmonics. And from the rings of Saturn, frigates launched clouds of reflective chaff that blinded enemy sensors. But the real surprise came from beyond human space. As the Council fleet neared Jupiter, Cathari raiders hit their rear flank, using stolen Council codes to slip past defenses. Mir scouts guided human shuttles through gravitational anomalies that would have torn other ships apart. Even Zyra nomads joined, using their massive cargo haulers to block warp exit points, forcing the Council into kill zones. The battle raged for 3 days. It was messy, brutal, and brilliant. Human ships took heavy losses, but they never broke. When the Liberty's engines failed, its crew set it on a collision course with a dreadnought, buying time for fighters to escape. When comms went down, pilots used old-school light signals, flashes of color that meant "follow me" or "fall back." The turning point came near the nebula of Alaris, a swirling cloud of gas on the edge of human-controlled space. Nina had lured the Spear of Order there, knowing its sensors would struggle in the interference. Captain Jake Ellis led a small team in stealth shuttles. Their target was not the ship's weapons, but its command nexus, a single relay that linked all Council vessels in the sector. If they could sever it, even for minutes, the fleet would fracture. They flew through plasma storms and debris, shields flickering. One shuttle was lost, another crippled, but Ellis made it. He planted the charge himself, clinging to the hull as alarms blared. He had 10 seconds to get clear. He made it with 2 to spare. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but its effect was deafening. Across the battlefield, Council ships froze. Orders stopped coming. Formations broke apart. For the first time, the mighty armada was blind and alone. Nina Rodriguez didn't waste a second. "All units, press the attack now." Human and allied forces surged forward, not to destroy but to disable. They targeted engines, comms, life support, anything to force surrender, not slaughter. By the end, over 60 Council ships were dead in space. The rest fled, their pride in ruins. High Admiral Vela survived, but her ship was captured. When Nina boarded the Spear of Order, she found the Admiral standing calmly on the bridge. "You fight like no species I have ever seen," Vela said. "We fight for something," Nina replied. not just against. Back on Earth, people watched the victory feeds with tears in their eyes. But there was no triumph in their voices, only relief and resolve. They knew the Council would not accept this loss. They would come again, angrier, more desperate. But something had changed. The galaxy no longer saw humans as primitives. They saw them as proof that even the smallest voice, when united, could shake the stars. And in hidden corners of 1,000 worlds, others began to find their own voices. The Council ordered humans to pay tribute, but their reply shook the galaxy. Part 4. After the battle at Alaris, the Council did not send another fleet, not right away. Instead, it went quiet. Too quiet. That silence worried Admiral Nina Rodriguez more than any warship. She knew the Council was not defeated, only wounded, and wounded predators were the most dangerous kind. But humanity did not wait. They knew their only chance was to act while the Council reeled. President Daniel Cruz approved Operation Phoenix, a plan not to conquer but to connect. Ambassador Carl Hicks became the face of this new effort. He left Earth again, this time with a small fleet of unarmed ships carrying engineers, doctors, and teachers instead of soldiers. Their mission was simple: help those who had helped them and reach out to those still suffering under the Council's rule. Their first stop was the mere homeworld of Virel. The icy domes were still recovering from years of neglect. Human engineers worked side by side with mirror technicians, installing geothermal pumps that warmed entire districts for the first time in generations. Children watched in wonder as human medics treated illnesses once thought incurable. An old Mer scholar named Cora showed Hicks a hidden archive, records of Council crimes, secret treaties, and lists of worlds forced into silence. "This belongs to everyone now," she said, handing him a data crystal. From Virel, they went to Sarnak. The desert moon was now a hub of rebel activity. Lisa Morgan had returned with new training modules, but this time, she also brought seeds, genetically modified crops that could grow in Sarnak's thin soil. The Cathari had spent centuries mining for others. Now, for the first time, they planted for themselves. Their leader, Jor, stood in the red dust watching green shoots push through the sand. "We used to dream of freedom," he told Lisa. "Now we're living it." Word spread. On the ocean world of Thalos, where the Council had banned deep-sea travel to control the native Selk, a human submersible helped repair their underwater farms. In the asteroid belt of Grix, human pilots taught young miners how to navigate safely without Council permits. Even species that had never spoken to outsiders began sending quiet signals: coordinates, warnings, offers of shelter. Slowly, a network formed. Not an empire. Not an army. Just people helping people. Back in Sol System, shipyards worked faster than ever. The Aegis, Liberty, and Phoenix were joined by new vessels, some built by humans, others gifted by allies. The Zira Nomads donated 3 of their massive cargo haulers, retrofitted with human weapons and shields. The Mir shared ancient navigation data that revealed hidden warp lanes the Council didn't know existed. Nina Rodriguez studied the star maps every night. She knew the Council would strike again, and when they did, they would come with everything. So she prepared a trap, not of weapons, but of unity. She sent fleets not to guard Earth, but to protect the new alliance. Human ships patrolled near Cathari mines, not to fight, but to deter. They escorted Zyra caravans through dangerous sectors. They stood watch over Thalos during its breeding season when the Selk were most vulnerable. And then, the Council moved. They did not attack Earth. They attacked the weakest link, the Cathari mining colonies on Sarnak. A full battle group descended without warning, burning supply depots and rounding up workers. Their message was clear: break the alliance, or watch your friends burn. But the Cathari did not break. They sent a single pulse. They're here. Within hours, help arrived. Not just humans. Zira haulers dropped from warp, their cargo bays filled with Cathari refugees. Mir scouts jammed Council comms using old archive codes. Selk fighters, tiny agile ships built for underwater canyons, darted through the chaos, disabling landing craft with precision strikes. And leading them all was the Aegis with Nina Rodriguez at the helm. The battle was fierce. The Council had expected a scattered rebellion. Instead, they found a coordinated defense. Human frigates drew fire while Zira ships evacuated civilians. Cathari rebels used their knowledge of the tunnels to ambush ground troops. And in the skies above, Captain Jake Ellis led a wing of mixed-species pilots in a dance of death that left the Council reeling. High Admiral Vela watched from a distant command post. She had been reinstated, given one last chance to crush the uprising. But what she saw defied logic. Species that had never fought together moved as one. They covered each other's weaknesses. They shared fuel, ammo, even oxygen. They're not just defending Sarnak, she muttered to her aide. They're building something new. And then came the final blow. Using the Mir's secret warp lanes, a human-led strike force appeared behind the Council fleet, right where their shields were weakest. They didn't fire on warships. They targeted the command relay, the same kind of hub Vela had once used to control her own armada. In seconds, the Council fleet lost coordination. Panic spread. Ships collided. Orders contradicted each other. Nina Rodriguez gave the order, "Disable, don't destroy." One by one, Council vessels powered down. Their crews surrendered not out of fear but exhaustion. They had spent lifetimes enforcing order, but they had never seen unity like this. When it was over, Sarnak was scarred but free. The Council's grand offensive had failed, not because of better weapons, but because they had underestimated the power of shared hope. In the days that followed, more worlds broke away. The Selk declared independence. The Grix miners formed their own trade union. Even some Council-aligned species began questioning their leaders. Back on Earth, President Cruz stood before the United Council chamber. "We didn't win a war," he said. "We started a conversation, and the galaxy is finally listening." Nina Rodriguez looked up at the stars from the bridge of the Aegis. She knew the Council wasn't gone, but it was no longer all-powerful, because now the stars belonged to everyone. The Council ordered humans to pay tribute, but their reply shook the galaxy. Part 5. The Council did not send another fleet. It sent a message, not a threat this time, but a request. It came through old diplomatic channels, signed not by a general or an envoy, but by the eldest of the Council elders, a being so ancient its name was whispered only in archives. The words were simple. "We seek to talk." On Earth there was no celebration. No cheers, only quiet disbelief. For so long the Council had spoken only in commands. Now it asked. President Daniel Cruz called his team together one last time. They met not in the underground bunker, but in a sunlit room overlooking Geneva's lake. The air smelled of rain and wet stone. Lisa Morgan, Carl Hicks, Nina Rodriguez, and Maya Peterson sat around a plain wooden table. No holograms, no armor, just people who had carried the weight of a world on their shoulders. "Do we trust them?" Lisa asked. "No," Nina said. "But we don't have to trust them to talk." Carl nodded. "This is what we wanted. Not to destroy them, but to change them." After days of negotiation, a place was chosen. Titan, Saturn's largest moon. It was neutral, quiet, and far from the scars of war. The humans agreed, but only if every species that had joined the alliance could send a voice, no matter how small. The Council, to everyone's surprise, agreed. The day of the Accords, over 200 species gathered on Titan's frozen plains. Their ships, some sleek, some battered, some cobbled together from scrap, docked in a wide circle around a newly built dome of clear alloy. Inside, delegates sat not in ranks of power, but in a single ring, each given the same space, the same light, the same chance to speak. The Council elders arrived last. They wore no armor, no insignia, just simple robes of gray. They did not sit at the head of the circle. They took their place like everyone else. Daniel Cruz stood first. He did not speak of victory. He did not list demands. He told a story. Long ago, he said, humans fought each other over land, over belief, over fear. We built walls, dropped bombs, and called it strength. But then we looked up. We saw the stars. And for the first time, we saw ourselves as one people, not perfect, not wise, but willing to try. He paused. We don't want your throne. We don't want your tribute. We want a table where everyone has a seat. One by one, others spoke. Cora of the Mir shared how knowledge should be free, not hoarded. Jor of the Cathari said labor should feed the worker, not the master. A young Selk delegate, barely past childhood, spoke of oceans that heal if left alone. Even a former council logistics officer, now representing a freed worker colony, admitted, we thought order meant control. But real order comes from fairness. The elders listened, truly listened. When it was their turn, the eldest rose slowly. Its voice was soft like wind through dry leaves. We believed we were protecting the galaxy, it said. But protection without consent is just another kind of cage. We were wrong. Silence followed. Not the silence of fear, but of understanding. Then the writing began. Not a treaty of surrender, but a charter of shared future. It had no tribute clauses, no enforcement fleets, no hierarchy. Instead, it promised open access to knowledge, mutual aid in times of need, and a new assembly where every world, no matter how small, had one vote. It also included a warning. Beyond the known stars, old signals had been detected. Something vast and hungry stirred in the void. The galaxy would need to stand together or fall alone. For 3 days they debated, revised, and agreed. On the 4th morning, under Titan's hazy orange sky, the delegates signed, not with seals or blood, but with light, each pressing a hand to a shared panel that recorded their species' signature in a single, glowing thread. Afterward, no one left right away. On the observation deck of the Aegis, Nina Rodriguez stood beside Captain Jake Ellis and Ambassador Carl Hicks. Below them, ships from 100 worlds exchanged supplies, shared music, and taught each other greetings in new languages. Azira Child laughed as a Cathari elder showed her how to weave star charts from wire. Mare scholars and human engineers pored over star maps, planning joint research outposts. "We did it," Jake said quietly. "No," Nina replied. "We started it." Back on Earth, people watched the live feed in homes, schools, and public squares. There were no parades, no statues being raised, just quiet pride. A farmer in Kansas turned to his daughter and said, "Remember this day, not because we won, but because we chose to share." In the weeks that followed, the old council dissolved. Its archives were open to all. Its armories were converted into shipyards for exploration, not war. Its great halls became libraries, schools, and meeting places. Humanity did not become rulers. They became neighbors. President Cruz stepped down after his term, returning to his hometown to teach history. Lisa Morgan helped train the first Joint Defense Corps, a force not to conquer but to protect the weak. Carl Hicks became the first human to serve on the new Galactic Assembly, not as a leader but as a listener. And Nina Rodriguez, she took the Aegis beyond the known rim, not to fight but to find, to answer the old signals from the void, not with weapons but with words. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. It was shaped by choice, and it all began with 2 words: "We decline." Not a shout, not a curse, just a quiet refusal to kneel. From that refusal grew something rare, fragile, and beautiful. A galaxy learning at last how to hope together.